Hello again, everybody. It's Eric with Better Every Shave. Today I am reposting a video that was made by Ben from the Soap Thing project. He's starting a new series taking a question relating to traditional shaving and having a guest on and having that discussion with them. Our topic was shaved soap tub sizes. Easy for me to say. Just had a conversation about whether the size of soap tubs is just right or too small or too big. We went through some different options and why we think maybe smaller sizes would be a good idea. Collecting soaps and having too many, and what do you do with all this soap? And so it was a really good conversation. We also went through introductions and going through our backgrounds and things like that. And so I'm always interested to hear that about other shavers and how they got into the hobby. So really interesting conversation. I really enjoyed the time I spent with him. I don't get a chance to talk about wet shaving with people around me and actually most of my friends and things like that. So normally it's sort of a one-sided conversation, if you will. So it was nice to have an actual two-way conversation with someone about traditional shaving. Ben has this posted on his channel as well. I'll link to that if you'd rather watch it there, but I just thought I'd repost it here so that everybody who subscribes to me would know that it was out there. Take a look, see what you think.
Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to the Soap Thing project, and thank you for joining me today. On the project today, I have Eric Adams of Better Every Shave. What's going on, Eric?
Not much. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. It's the middle of the night, about 02 in the morning for me. But I'm a night shift worker, and it's my weekend, so everything kind of just worked out.
That just proves your dedication, man.
Yeah, I guess. So for those of you who are watching this video and going, okay, what is this all about? I'm starting a new podcast series where I invite other content creators onto the Soap Thing project, and we just kind of pick a topic and spitball about it for a half an hour, and hopefully there's some healthy substantive disagreement. But if not, well, I guess we'll just have to agree to agree. You know what I mean?
I think between the two of us that there'll be plenty of people that disagree.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of a little bit of your background and how you got into this hobby and how it turned into a YouTube channel?
Yeah, sure. So I think most men sort of struggled with finding a good shave for most of my life. I watched my grandfathers shave the traditional way. You know, my one grandfather was an injector guy and the other was a Gillette guy. And I always saw those products in their bathrooms. But for some reason, when I was a teenager and started shaving, I just gravitated towards what was available in the drugstore or the grocery store. And that was, of course, you know, Gillette's cartridge products. And so I started with sensors and Mach 3 and those razors. And I stuck with them for a long time. And always had issues with, you know, the base of my neck here on my Adam's apple, the swirl of hair. And I was a white collar worker, so I had to wear a suit and tie every day, and I had to shave every day too. And so there was just a lot of, you know, irritation. I always had razor bumps here, which, you know, I'd find myself trying to hide because it was a little embarrassing to be dressed up nicely and kind of have that, you know, be I guess a visible mark of like, doesn't this guy know how to shave? You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I almost 3 years ago, well, actually back up. So about 10 years ago, I bought a Merkur 33C, and I got some awful blades. They're not even marked. I don't know what kind they are. And just some soap that wasn't all that great. And I just really didn't understand what I was doing. And I tried it a couple times and just did poorly, and then said, okay, well, this isn't any better. And I give up. At that point, I don't think there were the same resources that there are now. Like, I think if I were trying it new today, being able to see YouTube videos and other people, I think it's more visible now. There's more products. If I were to go on Amazon and search for, you know, for that type of stuff, there's a lot more choice. Anyway, so I put it away for until about 2.5, 3 years ago, pulled it back out, tried it again. And this time I stuck with it, and I did find those resources, and I did, really have an interest, and figured out that, oh, this is a great way to shave. And so from there, I sort of got sucked in, because of those same resources. I was like, oh, there's that razor and that razor, and there's all these vintage razors. And it just sort of snowballed from there, and ended up with a collection of almost 100 razors, and, that whole thing. And then got into brushes and soaps, and, so here I am today, and I love it. And the YouTube channel really came about because I was watching other YouTubers, and they, encouraged me, and they said, hey, if you're really this enthusiastic, like, everybody has a voice, why not get out there and put yourself out there and see what people think? And so I did. And yeah, here I am.
No, you're absolutely right. My story was substantially similar. I had been in the military for about 6 years, and I had to shave every day, and I was getting okay shaves. I'm not somebody who converted because the cartridge razor shaves I was getting were bad. I converted because I slowly found out that cartridge razors were better. So like the one doesn't have to be bad for the other to be just better. Uh, but I got to tell you, I spent 2 years shaving with a safety razor and just hacking my face apart. But by God, it was 8 to 10 times cheaper. So I was like, I am going to learn how to do this, or I'm just going to look like an idiot going into work. And so, but it never occurred to me to look at YouTube to see, okay, what am I doing wrong? I just like learned by trial and error. And by the time I discovered YouTube shaving channels, I had kind of already figured it out. And I was sending, Don Youngner from Wet the Face.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I was sending him hardware and software to review. And it got to where I was doing it so often that he finally, I think half jokingly, said, well, why don't you just start your own YouTube channel and do it yourself? And I was like, okay, I guess I'll go do that then. But yeah, I think a lot of what pushes people into shaving the old fashioned way is that for some reason they feel dissatisfied with the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
It does. It does. And I think there's a lot of reasons. Better shave in my case was what really sort of led me in that path. But then once I realized shaving was always something that was like a necessity. Like, I did it because it was like brushing your teeth. Like, I just had to do it. And it's not like I've ever, like, maybe there's toothbrushing enthusiasts out there. I don't know.
Somehow I doubt it.
I don't know. There seems to be anyway. So shaving had become this really interesting thing all of a sudden. Like, there was a passionate community around it. There were all these really cool products, and some of them the vintage stuff was really intrinsically cool. And at the time, very inexpensive. Like, the prices now are kind of crazy for some of the vintage stuff that I bought for $10 or less is now like $40, $50, $60. And it's like, wow, okay. But that shows you, I think, the popularity of the hobby. So, but no, I think you're absolutely right. There's so many things to enjoy and learn, and, that kind of draw you in and keep you interested in shaving as a hobby, much more so as sort of a utility thing. So,
right. Speaking of the hobby, that's a good segue into the topic for this video. So how this is going to work is anytime I have on a guest, we're going to pick a topic and just tear it apart. And so the topic for today is soap tub sizes, and maybe the pros and cons of this size versus that size. Like, here we have this is from Cooper and wow, you have to excuse me for that. CNF Cooper and French. This is their standard 4-ounce tub. This is Pastor's Reserve from Pastor's Pharmacy, and 4 ounces of soap, or 142 grams. Actually, this is 5 ounces. So yeah, so 4 to 5 to 5.5 has been kind of the industry standard for the last 5 years. Only recently, I mean, Katie's Bubbles has been doing, 2 ounces of soap for a while, and then just recently you had Denton Magic really leaning into the smaller sub tub sizes. He's doing 2.5 ounces. If I can get that to show up on camera. Yeah, I've got the Mighty Mac too.
Yeah.
But he actually leaned way into kind of the premium aspect of the smaller shaving soap tubs because these
Hmm.
are like glass versus the rest of them are, these are just your typical plastic jars.
Yeah.
So, why do you think, or do you think that 4 ounces, 5 ounces, 5.5 ounces, was it always too much, or has it kind of sort of evolved to that?
So I think if you were a utility shaver and you were just buying a tub of soap, maybe two, maybe three, just a handful of soaps to rotate through, that 4 or 5, even some 6 ounce tubs. I mean, that's a great value because it's a good quantity of soap. It's going to last you for a good while. And and again, if you're using it regularly, you will go through it. My problem with that is that it's not about the value proposition, although of course I don't want to overpay, but at the same time, I'm never going. I have so many tubs of soap now that I'm never ever going to get through it. It would take 3 lifetimes at least for me to get through what I have now, let alone the stuff that I continue to buy. And I have cut way back on purchases. I'm now like a once every other month kind of purchaser. When something piques my interest, I'll go for it. But I really, really appreciate artisans that are putting out smaller product sizes, simply because it makes more sense for me as a hobbyist, because I don't need 4 or 5 or 6 ounces of soap. I think, this 2.5 ounce from Denton Magic, it's perfect. I've used it maybe, I don't know, 8 times, 10 times, and I still have only really used, a little bit of it, because that's the other thing. Today's soaps are so rich that you don't need very much to create an incredible amount of lather. Yeah, look at that.
Right.
So, I mean, maybe in days past where you'd actually have to take a good scoop of it, and you're using a solid amount of it. But I mean, I feel like I overuse sometimes, because I'll make a huge lather and there'll still be a little bit of soap left in the bottom of the bowl, and it's like, but so I think you have, the better formulas, better bases. You have, the tub sizes themselves are just, for me, way too big, because the other thing is, even if it's a good per ounce price, you start pushing into the $4 or $5 per ounce, and now you're talking, $20, $25, $30, even more, just for the soap. And then you get the set, and all of a sudden you're looking at $50, and it's like, for one soap and for one set, that's a lot. And maybe, maybe there are people, and I'm sure this is the case because I've seen some of their closets, but maybe they just have that income to spend. But I really don't. I have to be careful about what I spend. And so, if more artisans put out 2 ounce tubs or 2 to 3 ounce tubs, I would be inclined to buy, instead of a $50 set, it's a $25 set. I'm going to buy 2 sets of something then. So as a consumer, I'm going to spread that money around more. And I think in general, it's a win-win for me and for the artisan themselves, because it's more likely that I'm going to buy more things for different artisans. So sure, it's less per, they're making less profit, I assume. I don't know. But yeah, for me, smaller is just a better idea, a better proposition. So yeah.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, with these little tubs, there is a lot of diminishing return, where the smaller a tub they sell you, the more they have to charge you relative to the amount. The higher price per ounce they kind of have to sell you to make it worth their while. But I think the reason that we still have these large tubs, especially from artisans, is because it's kind of a holdover from about 5 or 6 years ago when there were very few hobbyists. Like if you go back and look at like the old school artisans that have been around for a long time, Sterling, Shannon Soaps, Strop Shop, Reef Point. Back when they were making soap, there weren't very many hobbyists who were just going to load their closet with 150 of these things. And when you're getting up there like I am, like I'm at the point where I'm very quick to get jaded and very hesitant to buy new things unless I really think I'm going to like it.
Yeah.
Because I got to tell you, this 5.8 ounce tub of 345 takes up a lot more space than this 2.5 ounce tub from Denton Magic. Like it's not even close. So I think artisans. I don't think legacy soaps are doing this. I think Mitchell's Wolfat, Tabac, Cella, things like that are always going to be very large tubs of soap because they've been very large tubs of soap for 50 years.
Right.
So, but I think artisans who are making soap out of their garage are kind of starting to resign themselves to the fact that most of their customer base, I'm speaking anecdotally, but I really do believe most of their customer base is hobbyists. Like they're catching utilitarian shavers here and there peripherally, but the core customer base, I think, is as people who have lots of this stuff. And so they're finally starting to respond to an increasingly vocal crowd of people who are like, I don't want this much soap. and I don't care if I have to pay, if it's not as good a deal for me. I want something that's going to take up less physical space that I have a fighting chance of actually consuming fully. Like I've got somewhere between 140 and 150 shaving soaps. I think I've exhausted completely probably 15 in my entire life.
Right.
So, I mean, I've got enough soap to last me until I'm 70 years old.
Yeah.
And like most of it is probably going to get given away or resold and stuff like that. So I agree with you fully. I think we've reached that point where, where artisans are having to, they're having to respond to a customer base that's increasingly not super patient with these large tubs of soap. Like even 345 for their Black Friday deals, those are out all 2-ounce sets. And you're seeing more and more artisans that are not afraid to do that anymore because they're kind of looking at everybody else and going, well, if they're doing it, then it must be okay for me to do it.
But I think they've set the market too, right? So you look at most soap companies are going to be somewhere between $15 and $25 for a 4-ounce, 4 to 5 ounce tub of soap. If someone like Heritage Hill puts out a 3-ounce for $10, or this 2.5 for $10, it's almost like a you don't even have to think about it. It's like, wow, what a bargain. And yes, of course it's less soap, but at the same time, like I said, I mean, I'm going to be inclined to buy more product at that lower price point. One, because it's just less expensive, and two, because like you said, I'm not going to have those giant tubs. I already have an entire cabinet set up in my closet dedicated to just housing my shaving stuff. And it's like, how much is it? Like, how much can I possibly have before it becomes like ridiculous? That, and I agree with you. Like, I gift some, and I trade and that kind of stuff, and that's fine. That's all part of the community. But yeah, I feel sort of almost guilty at this point buying another 4 or 5 ounces of soap that I'm never going to get through. The other thing is, a lot of artisans don't want to do samples. And I understand why. It's a lot of work for a very little bit of return.
Yeah, it's a loss leader for them.
Yeah. But again, instead of samples, if they were to do these smaller sizes, then I would be way more inclined, instead of going to Maggards or some other, vendor that is offering me samples that they themselves create, I'll more likely go to the vendor and just buy their smaller soap, because I'm not going to have a problem spending $20 on a soap and splash set, but spending 40 to 50 on ones that I don't know. And I'm terrible with scent descriptions too, because I'll read something and think that's bang on for me. Like that is so in my wheelhouse. And then I get it and I'm like, oh, boy, I was wrong. And so I'm now gun shy, like you said. I'm jaded. Like I'm very careful with, just because. And I've started to learn the other beautiful thing about YouTube is like I've started to learn the tastes of other YouTubers, and like when they try something and they say they like it, then I feel better. Like it's like, okay, if I know that Soap Thing likes this soap and I know his tastes, and it's more than likely that I'm going to like it as well. And so I'm starting to use that. But if there were these smaller soaps, I guarantee you I would be much more inclined to just try and not even worry about it.
Yeah, you'd be more likely to take a shot in the dark.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. I'm at this point, I've gotten to be kind of a soap sommelier. Like I can look at a scent description on paper, and I've gotten very good at being able to tell if I'm going to like it, and I'm usually pretty correct about that. Like I don't know what it is. I've always had a very sensitive sense of smell.
Hmm.
So I've gotten to where, like, after I just had a endoscopic sinus surgery and a septoplasty, and if anything, my ability to smell got better after that.
Oh, I
like,
bet. Yeah,
like
because it opened
I
things up, right?
smelled I smelled this Irish coffee right after I got out of the hospital.
Mm.
I whipped it up. Well, right after I got the stents taken out of my nose,
Hmm.
and I stuck my nose in there thinking I wouldn't be able to smell it, and I was like, "Whoa!"
Well, if it's anything like the Katie's bubbles that I have, it's a good strong scent.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah. The case bubbles doesn't play around. How much? To your point, not to go off the rails, off topic, but how much do you think is too much? Well, like if you had to give an exact
oh,
number of what amount of products is too much?
you mean overall quantity? Like how many?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, it depends on, so longevity has a lot to do with it. I've only been at this for about 3 years. And so, I think the collection I have right now, so because I went through a razor phase, and that was 6 months of just nothing but razors with a couple soaps. Like I literally had a Parasso and a Cella, and I had like
Right.
3 or 4 soaps. I didn't care. And then I went on a brush phase and did that for 6 months. And so that was at least a year of my journey. And then, once I've finally started getting into soaps, then it was about, I am not a frag head. I know nothing about fragrances. I don't know what any colognes smell like. I'm terrible at it. So when you guys all get into your scent stuff, I'm just like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I have
Right.
no basis of comparison. So I've been very careful about just trying samples and just getting samples, put in 6 orders to Maggards of all of their different samples. And I enjoy that because then it sort of gives me a point of reference in that case. But uh, so because I've only really been into soaps for a little over a year, I feel like I've already, I've probably got, I don't know, 30, 30, and not all of them are sets because I really didn't get into aftershave until about 4 months ago.
Right.
It just wasn't, I didn't care. But once I realized, oh, that great smell of the soap doesn't last, and I want it to last, then it became, oh, okay, now I want an aftershave. And I'm sure that'll probably lead to, oh, now I want the EDT,
Yeah,
and
that's usually where it goes. That's the rabbit hole people go down.
yeah, and that's fine. That, I don't have a problem doing those things in moderation, and I think that's all part of the fun of the journey of, of learning these things and trying new things. But I do think I have a knee-jerk reaction whenever I see someone, I forget somebody recently did a, shave den tour, and it was just jaw-dropping. Hundreds of tubs of soap and matching sets, and it was just like, I'm sitting there thinking like that is literally like $5,000-6,000 worth of product easily. I mean, it might maybe even more. I don't know. Let alone, and that's just soaps and splashes. That's not even brushes and razors and who knows what else they've got, you know. But if that is what brings them happiness and they can afford to do it, then I'm happy with that. It doesn't bother, it doesn't affect me. I don't care. I'm nobody's dad. I'm not going to tell you that it's the wrong thing to do. The only thing I worry about is that if some people are putting it on the credit card and they're paying interest to have these things, that's not a great decision in my opinion. But again, I'm not
Yeah.
here to tell anybody what's right or what's wrong. If that's what makes you happy, do it. You know.
No,
Um,
I get what you're saying. Okay, there's a lot to unpack here. Uh, so in my personal opinion, if you were to come to me and say, "Hey, I've been buying a lot of shaving soap lately. When should I stop?" I would say, if I had to come up with a number off the top of my head, I would say if you have more than 30 shaving soaps, you probably ought to hit the brakes. And I know I'm being hypocritical because there's tons of us here on YouTube who have way more than that, 3, 4, 5 times more than that.
yeah.
But if you're not trying to be that way, you're just in exploration mode. I think once you've reached 30 shaving soaps, you probably have some overlap. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you probably got some redundant scents going on where there's shared scent notes.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that when it comes to software, I think certainly before 50, you ought to reconsider your position if you're concerned about it. If it's not a big deal to you, then I'll agree with your take on it. That hey, you do what you want, man. But if you're coming to me saying when should this be considered too much, I'm going to tell you between 30 and 50, you ought to start hitting the brakes a little bit.
What I think even pragmatic people might say that's even that is 30s pushing it. I think, I mean, I agree with you. I think that, you know, 30, if you're a hobbyist, like purely you love it, you want to do it every day. I recently started shaving every day because I used to do it every second or third day. And I realized like, I want to use these products I have. I want to use all these razors and stuff. So I'm going to just shave every day. You
Right.
know, even if I like right now, I have just enough. So tonight I'll probably have a shave because I enjoy it. It's sort of like therapeutic for me, and I have all these great toys to use, and so I want to use them. But I think there are probably people that would say 30 is a lot, and there are people obviously that would say 30 is not enough. So
Right.
there's probably not one perfect answer. I agree with you. I think that's probably a good, solid thing because I agree. I'm now starting to hit that where there are redundant things, and there seem to be really popular fragrances within the shaving community. I had to laugh, and this is not a knock on them, but Master Soap Creations just came out with their vanilla tobacco or tobacco vanilla Tom Ford, you know.
Yeah, the Tom Ford tobacco vanille dupe.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, well, okay, I own 3 of them, you know, and I love them because I'm a tobacco fanatic. Like that is that's my favorite sort of those earthy, not dirty, but earthy sort of scents, dark fruity scents, that vanillas and sandalwoods and stuff. But anyway, it does seem like once you hit 30, you've kind of, if you've sort of poked around and tried a lot of different things. So I'll say I have 30 full size tubs and probably 100 samples,
Right.
so I've gotten around enough to sort of understand, and because I'm starting to build what is the equivalent of a palette for nasal for smell? Is there something like, because I know palette's more of a flavor thing.
I'm not sure if there's
Anyway,
a technical term for it.
I'll
Uh,
go with sommelier.
yes, I got that from whiskey sommeliers. You know, people like to sit there and sniff their bourbon, which I like to do on occasion, but I don't know if my nose is quite that good yet.
Yeah. Well, those
Well,
guys get paid good money for
yeah,
that.
yeah, they do. Well, Zoom is hitting us with this 10 minutes before it
Yeah.
kicks us out. We got about 7.5 minutes left. Real quick, I want to uh, touch on a point you made earlier about not understanding certain scents. Unfortunately, I've gotten so good at describing scents that I will like break it down in like nitty gritty detail.
Yes.
And I
Yes, you do.
like I expect people to know what star anise or smells like. I hope you're not tasting star anise. That'd probably be gross. I expect people to know what star anise smells like. I expect people to know what labdanum smells like. I expect people to know what oud smells like, and a lot of people don't. And so that's something I got to work on, where I need to start describing scents in a much more primitive
Hmm.
way. Like when I
Yeah.
talk about Cella, for example, I've done a video on Cella before, and I'm like, oh, it's a cherry almond marzipan. What I ought to just say is, dude, it smells like Christmas cookies. That's literally
Yeah.
what it smells like. And then I think more people would resonate with that. But then they're sitting there watching me wig out on on describing this stuff, and I don't think it's doing them any favors. And so you made a really good point with that.
I think that if you were to start with saying it smells like Christmas cookies, and in case you didn't understand that, it's marzipan, cherry, and like, and I think that's what sort of bridges, because the challenge I have is whenever I pick up a soap, Mighty Mac's a good example. Like that's a very cologne type scent. There's a lot of little individual components in there that make up that sort of harmony of fragrances. And so my trick is if I read the scent description and they call out, top notes, middle notes, and base notes, like it's very hard for me as a novice to know what I'm smelling. Like, okay, I get this. And I'm starting to understand because I don't love oak moss. I've started to realize that oak moss is a little bit of a trick for me.
Yeah, and that soap is a oak moss heavy soap.
Yeah, yeah. And so like, but when oak moss is balanced with the right sort of counterbalance, to me it's nice. My problem is that there are certain soaps that I, without realizing it, intentionally go heavy on a certain note. And so again, that ties back to me trying as a novice, trying full size tubs and the splash and everything with it. Like that's a almost like a risky proposition for me. And so I don't know, like you're right. Like, how do I educate myself on what these things smell like? Because it when they become mixed together, it's difficult to pick them out and know what I'm smelling. And it's not like I can just, I guess, get samples of full, just individual. Maybe I can go somewhere and you know, just get labdanum and just get, you know, these different, and just so I know specifically what they smell like. I don't know.
Right. Well, we're down to about 4 minutes left. I think I'm gonna do a frag out. You didn't bring a fragrance, so I'll make sure to double spray for you. I'm gonna use Tom Ford Beau de Jour. Have you ever smelled Fine American Blend?
I haven't, but I've heard a lot of people talking about it, so it's one that I want to try. So
It's a shaving cream kind of smell. This is a fougere, so it's got your lavender and your geranium, and this one's a bit oak moss heavy. So for those of you who know what Fine American Blend smells like, that's a Yves Saint Laurent Rive Gauche Porome dupe. This smells a lot like that, only it's more oak moss heavy and less heavy on the licorice or star anise. But
hmm.
short answer is it's a really classy kind of fougere, and I was lucky to pick that up at a really cheap price off base here in Turkey. You got any last minute words for any last minute words of wisdom for this video?
Not me. No, that's why my name was better every shave, because it's really, I've started at the ground level and I'm really just sort of chipping away as I go. And it's thanks to, YouTubers like yourself. I've learned, specifically your channel and, a couple others that, I've really pulled a lot of knowledge out of. You're so casual about it because it's just something that's second nature to you. But to me, because I'm really trying to build a basis of knowledge and understanding, like I'm listening to every little thing. And so there's a huge value to people sharing what they're doing. I think some people could say it's kind of silly and like, why, who cares, who wants to watch this? But if you have an interest, I think there's a lot of value to, to being able to see this in practice and hear what you're saying. And so I appreciate that. And thank you for taking the time to do it. So.
Well, thank you for being a part of the wet shaving community. I appreciate it. Seems like every time I'm meeting somebody new with good personal character and good intentions who just wants to learn something and have fun and have a relaxing shave. You know what I mean?
That's it, man.
Well, check out Eric Adams, Better Every Shave on YouTube. I will put him somewhere up here and I will put him down there in the description of the video. I'll put him all over the place for you to check him out. So do check out Better Every Shave. I want to thank everybody for watching. And until next time, this is Soap Thing telling you, shave like you mean it. Thanks for watching.